When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Good morning, everybody. How are we? How are we all? Welcome to episode 92 of Join Up Dots. It's been an absolute roller coaster ride since we started, and it's getting better and better because now, quite excitingly, I get to go on other people's shows and talk about myself. And who doesn't like talking about themselves? I certainly do. And today's guest was an absolute delight to invite me onto his show, Fire and Adjust. And let's give you a bit of introduction about the chap. He's a man whose career, I suppose, has been one of great contrast. Joining the military back in 1998, he performed the role of tank member crewman for 3 years before departing the armed forces and setting off on his entrepreneurial venture. Working in a series of motor dealerships, he always knew that he was on a different path. And with a show like Join Up Dots demonstrating this every day, that path can appear at any time. There's literally no time like the present to start taking the first step on the road that feels so right and is unique to that individual. So in January 2014, our guest powered up his mic and launched, as I said before, the Fire and Adjust podcast, providing support and content for military veterans across the world. And with the response being phenomenal and the progress of the show showing that if you target a niche or a niche and do it the right way, then you have a great chance of a future that is nothing short of a wow. So what does our guest consider to be the big takes from his life in the army, and what was the tipping point to start speaking to the world and really putting himself out there? And I suppose the main question, if he could share the things that have made it easier to transition from the forces to an entrepreneurial life, what would they be? Well, let's find out as we start joining up dots with the one and only, my mate on the mic, Mr. Ron Fugle. How are you today, Ron?
I am doing awesome, sir. Thank you so much for the great introduction, and I appreciate you having me on the show as well, man. I've been a fan of yours for a while. You know that.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely. We had a good time on your show, didn't we? It was one of those shows that we didn't really feel that we were recording. It was almost like a kind of private conversation that then was blasted out to the world.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is you said we're not recording or something like that, and I flinched. I was going to go hit that record button. I guess that's the reaction coming out of me. That's funny that happened when you said that. But yeah, no, our time together it is, and even just like right now, back and forth banter. It's that rapport we have, like we were talking briefly, is just amazing. So that's cool to have.
Well, what do you think it is about podcasting that is so exciting? Because I know so many people have been saying to me that they listen to the show, from new listeners and people that I used to know in my past life. And none of them really used to listen to talk radio. It wasn't a thing. You'd always have to have music. But there is a power, isn't there, to podcasts when two people are having an intimate conversation together, which I think, because you actually deliberately choose and you're not just sort of scanning through trying to find something to listen to, there's a power that comes out that you don't actually get on radio. Would you agree?
Yeah. And you know what else I think is it too is the power and the choices within your audience. You know, where the radio, you're kind of limited to what those radio stations deem you want to listen to, and then those are the choices you get. Where with podcasting, it's infinite value there. There are infinite options. I mean, where if I like listening to veteran podcasts and then I want to go and listen to Join Up Dots and then I want to go and listen to Michael O'Neill, and I can pick and choose my schedule, what I want to listen to and what I want to learn. You know, I think that's where the real connection with podcasting comes in.
And you can do it at any time, can't you? Because the shows are evergreen. And that's the kind of fascinating thing that I think anyone who is on the mic, you're leaving your dots behind, because you can see show 1, show 2, show 10, and you can actually track your own progression. Well, I don't think you can generally do that in life. You just go into work, it all blurs into one, and then you suddenly start thinking, oh, I can do this now. But you can't actually, you don't leave that evidence behind you, do you?
Yeah, no. As painful it is to listen back to the first episodes and how much I struggled, you know, I wasn't definitely the person to be behind a mic. You know, I stepped outside of my box to make this happen. So
did you not listen back to your first ones? Do you not like them?
I no, I like them, but it's definitely, I can hear you know what it is? I can hear the fear and the uncertainty in my voice. And where as you go on and you get some reps and you start getting more comfortable behind the microphone and stuff, that starts to dissipate a little bit. So there's a little less hums and ahs and and pauses and breaks and stuff like that in the beginning you drive yourself mad, because I think you're also overanalyzing yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like you discussed that you're to a point now where you're on such a high level, David, where you barely have to edit your stuff, and that's awesome. You know what I'm saying? And I think in the beginning when we all start off, we're really so scared about it, we just overanalyze everything, you know. So
well, I didn't realize that I said as much as I did, but when I listened back to my earlier episodes, you're absolutely right. There are ums all over the place, and it is just that ability to give your brain a chance to catch up, isn't it? And in normal conversation, it's okay. You can say that and nobody bats an eyelid. But when you're actually recording and you play it back, it is something that you have to learn. And I'm not even sure how you do learn to stop saying Do you think it's just confidence that stops you doing that all the time?
I think it's confidence and over time, but I think you're right. I think you need those pauses and breaks. If I didn't have them, I would run off on even more rabbit holes than I already do. You know, it would be an interesting thing. But yeah, so I have to actually sometimes and bring myself back and say, hold on a second, I lost my train of thought, because you get going, you know, have all these ideas. And I think a lot of us podcasters are that type of person that does the look squirrel thing, you know what I'm saying? So we can do it to ourselves when we're rambling on and talking too, you know, especially if it's something you're passionate about and you love talking about. Like obviously you and I talking about podcasting right now is something that we could probably do an infinite number of shows about, you know what I'm saying? So something like that, it's a blast.
It is an absolute blast. I love this more than anything I've ever done in my life, without a doubt. Yeah. And it's amazing to me how the world becomes small when you start putting yourself out there. And I suppose the question I want to ask you, Ron, first of all, is if you look back onto, and we're not going to focus in on podcasting all the time because it's interesting to me, interesting to you, but for the rest of the people, they don't really care. They just want to hear a story.
I know. Right. Yep.
And so we're talking about our favourite microphones and all that, and who cares? But the thing with you is you say that on the first episodes, it was actually you breaking down your envelope, coming out of your comfort zone. Why did you want to do that? Why did you want to put yourself out there if it wasn't a natural state of being for you to do that?
I have, you know, a gentleman that we listen to mutually says something quite often is that I came to a point where I knew too much. You know what I'm saying? I've done a lot of research over the years.
Give him a name check because he's a legend, isn't he?
Right. Michael O'Neill. And he always says it. And it's one of the things that he says that resonates with me because I am the guy with over 150 audiobooks in his audio account, his Audible account, you know, and I have Tupperware totes full of books that I've read and highlighted. And when I say read, I mean, they're dog-eared, they're highlighted, they're underlined, there's stuff. No, I mean, I go in there and I find notes that I wrote to myself 13 years ago, you know, so it came to a point where I said, okay, enough's enough. Something's holding me back. What was it? And then I found a book called, oddly enough, it's The War of Art. Or is it The Art of War? I always get that one screwed up. But it was Stephen Pressfield's book about overcoming fear. Okay?
I think it's The War of Art, isn't it?
The War of Art.
That sounds right in my head.
Well, The Art of War is a big military book too, so it's like those two. I bet it's hard to decipher between the two when I'm trying to bring it out all of a sudden. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, his book was by far, check that out because it'll tell you that through the face of adversity, you know, the best things come in sometimes with the biggest fear, or the biggest struggles, or the biggest obstacle that you have to overcome. And on the other side is going to be the best thing, you know. So that's what it was. And maybe it came up in our other podcast or not. I'm afraid of heights, but I jump out of planes because it's a fear of mine, and I know the only way for me to do it is to do that. Plus, it's a hell of a freaking adrenaline rush, and it's like an adrenaline junkie too. That type of thing with overcoming your fears, you can get addicted to, I guess.
Because I don't get jumping out of planes, Ron. I really don't get. I have been in many, many flights, and not one time has it not landed. And so I think all these people that just jump out for the fun of it, I just don't get it at all. Or bungee jumping.
Try doing it when you're afraid of heights.
Yeah,
I can't stand on my roof. You know what I'm saying?
But that's even worse. Why do that? That's just lunacy.
You're right. It is. But it's something that I look back on now, and I'm so glad that I said, okay, I'm afraid of this. So I'm going to do the craziest freaking thing that I can do that involves the fear of that. And skydiving was the perfect thing. I'll go bungee jumping now. I'll go, you go to the amusement parks, all the rides that the kids won't go on. I'm freaking, if I had the money, I'd go on them 100 billion times in a row. You get it after you get that over that fear, it's no longer there. And then that's just one less thing holding you back.
Mine was marriage. That was the thing that I was frightened of. And it took me a while, but once I did it, it was the best thing. And it was the best thing I ever did, marrying my missus. And I'm going to say that because she might be listening. So
funny.
Is it important to you to overcome your fears? And do you think that people out there, are we too reliant on watching other people transition through their fears without doing it ourselves? Do we live through other people's journeys more than actually taking control ourselves, do you think?
Yes and no. I think I want to say that you should learn from other people's journeys, but you need to live your own journey. You know what I'm saying? And if you can save yourself time by watching somebody else's failures and hiccups or what they did to accomplish something so you don't have those same failures, something's going to happen, but you'll at least be beyond that point. You know what I'm saying? So the reason I got to that point with overcoming fears and stuff like that is just over the years, all the different things that I was looking back on now, like we talk about, is now I see it. And I'm not going to let that affect me in the future by any means. And I made that decision a while back, obviously. But
so it was a conscious decision, was it? It wasn't something that just crept up on you. One day you said, things have got to move.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we all have those life events and stuff like that happen that spark that movement, I guess. I shouldn't say we all, but some of us do. A lot of it does, and I'll very open about it in my podcast and everything. I lost a lot of people in my life, and watching them and their journeys and stuff like that, and looking back on it and reflecting and stuff, that all goes into play in the way I live my life now.
So are you somebody that sort of reflects a lot? Because I'm not. I always say to the wife, there's absolutely no point in your past. There's no point in your future. It's only now. And now will make the future, and the past, it's gone. So are you somebody that does reflect a lot?
Now I am. I wasn't before. I was very focused on the future. I mean, I've been the type of person that's had 10 years goals since I was a kid, and to the point to where my own mother made comments about it. She's like, why you're always talking about these 10-year goal, 5-year goal, and then I'll break it down from there to a 3, 2, 1, and then monthly, and I've always had that type of mentality. But now the reflection and looking back and seeing what the things and where I'm at now and the mistakes that I've made and other people have made and how that can affect me, then yeah, you're damn right. But that's something that you got to learn over life's experiences, I guess. And that's what I want to try to tell people. But it's like you talk to your blue in your face, you know what I'm saying? I've got a younger sibling that I'll start trying to offer advice to, and what do you get? You get, well, you sound like mom and dad. You know what I'm saying? So can we connect the dots and help people connect the dots, I guess, on the way up and save them time and stuff? Yeah, but I think they're going to have to learn their own life lessons too, unfortunately, along the way.
Well, that's what we're trying to do in this show, and I think that's what we're trying to do in many of these shows. Just make people aware. As you were saying, with all your sort of self-help books, there is a point where you know too much. And I certainly got to that point as well. When I'd read too many blogs, I'd seen so many stories about how other people were living their life, and I was sitting at the same desk every single day doing my work. And I think once you do get to that point, I kind of feel now it's my duty to make people aware of the opportunities that are available to them by these shows. So even if they haven't got a chance to do what I did and read all the blogs and the websites and the books and all that kind of stuff, they can get the nuts and bolts of what is out there through these conversations, through inspiring conversations with people like yourself who are trying and doing stuff and moving on in their life.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful thing about the day and age now is where we have that technology to where we can do that. And you go back and you talk to some of the most successful people and successful business people out there, they've always had that kind of interaction with somebody. I guess, we'll talk about masterminds and we'll talk about groups and stuff like that. But they've always kind of had that mentor that they went to that gave them the advice and stuff like that. And now we have the ability to save people time and money by being able to broadcast out those life lessons and those lessons that were reserved to only the select few, unfortunately, over the years.
Did you have a mentor now? Your entrepreneurial journey is taking shape big time. Is there somebody helping you, or are you in a group, a mastermind group, or are you just doing it yourself?
I wish I could say I was doing it myself, but I mean, I'm doing all the work and everything. I mean, I'm doing all that, but I am in a mastermind group, and I will say that Michael O'Neill and the Solo Lab is by far one of the best groups I've been in. I've joined a lot of programs and stuff along the way. You know what I'm saying? And I'm no longer with them. And right now, Solo Lab, I don't foresee myself getting out of. It's just a really active community of like-minded people, and the interaction in there and everything is something that I aspire to build with Fire and Adjust here in the future.
So for our listeners out there, listening to you say that, and it's quite a big statement that you're in this online environment that is supporting and helping you through Michael O'Neill's Solo Lab. And I hope, honestly, I hope there's an affiliate scheme for this, because we're giving him all the love in this show. This is.
No, I wish there was, but you know what? I'm not gonna hold back on the honest truth that networking and reaching out and getting in a group by far is what got me over that fear of getting outside of my box and doing something. I mean, I've started a lot of things, but a podcast was what. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna hide things from people.
So are you in podcasting because you went into the Solo Lab first, or did you go into podcasting and then join the Solo Lab? How did it work for you?
I am a podcaster because of the Solo Lab, but I think I was always a podcaster. I mean, I was very addicted to them. And like I said, audiobooks and podcasts were, for the last, 5 to 10 years of my life, that's all I ever did was consume that type of information. And once I got into the Solo Lab and we're working out, I've got a couple other projects that I'm working on and stuff like that. And once this came to light and everything, then to me, the only option really was to start it with a podcast and to launch it with a podcast. So that came a decision to where I had to overcome a fear. Okay. Podcasting is what I wanted to do and how I wanted to bring my word out to the audience, but it wasn't initially. It would have just been a blog. If it wasn't for Solo Lab and having other people support me, it would have just been a blog and stuff like that. I don't know if I would have got the podcast out there. That's a good thing to bring up, to be honest with you.
So it was
the support of them that got me over that hurdle. Sorry if I...
No, that's all right. No, absolutely. But was there a moment in the Solo Lab where you suddenly went... Because I had the moment when I quit my job, I was going to be a web developer, and I've told this story numerous times. It lasted 2 days until I thought to myself, I can't do this. And I just reached for some kind of noise, and I ended up on podcasts. And I had this moment when I thought, I could do this. I know I could do this. And at that point, my life changed. And I simply just thought, this is the way to connect to an audience quicker than you can do by creating a blog or a website, all those things where you have to develop the traffic. Because with a podcast, you've got so many avenues and you blast, and it's word of mouth. And if you do it well, then it's more than incremental gains. It becomes a tsunami, and it sort of floods in your direction. So was there a moment in the Solo Lab when you suddenly thought, I hadn't thought about this. I don't really know whether I'm going to be any good, but something seems right. Something's pulling me towards the microphone.
I saw the power of podcasting, and I knew that, like, for me, whatever I do has to align with me personally and morally. I can't get behind something if I don't feel comfortable with it. And to get my word out there, it just was the quickest way to do it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not much of a writer. I hate spelling. I can't. It's like, thank God for spell check. But for me to get on the mic and actually be able to just express my opinions and stuff. Now, mind you, I come from a retail sales background and managing that type of thing. So I'm constantly in front of people talking. I'm constantly engaged, and I'm constantly doing face-to-face sales. So once I started to take the correlation between that, okay, what I do on a daily basis is talking. All right. So once I got over the fear of the fact that there's a microphone and it's recording, then it was just started to become more natural to me. So was there a moment? Yeah, it was when a couple of my mentors said that I just need to quit being a pansy and do it, and I did. And once I got that first rep in there, it was, we'll talk about in some of the episodes and stuff. I do demolition derbies. I don't know if you guys do stuff like that over there, but we'll take like 6 to 8 cars and we'll stick them in this like dirt track, and then we'll run into each other until the cars die.
That's how we drive generally in the United Kingdom.
Well, and on the wrong side of the road too. What the hell?
Yeah, it's madness.
It makes sense to me. I've always often wondered why, as the driver, I'm on the inside closest to the danger. I always wondered that. I never understood over here. It's just never made sense. But so, anyways, we're getting off subject. I don't even remember what the hell we're talking about.
Well, we're talking about that moment when you decided that it was going to be your show. You were transitioning. You was in the solo lab. A couple of your mentors said to you, "Stop being a pansy, Ron. Get with it."
Yeah, because I was trying to put it off. I was trying to come up with excuses as to why I just needed to do a blog and not a podcast or something like that. And it was just, and I'll reference back to Stephen Pressfield's book there, that part of that is what helped me get over that too. So it was definitely a moment in Solo Lab of those 3 things combined that said, okay, this is what I got to do. And once I hit record and I put that first episode out there and I got the response back, that fear was gone, and it was just no holds barred from there.
Did you have a 5-episode slump? Because I found that the first few episodes, it was all adrenaline. And then the sort of 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, I started to ease into it. And when I listened back to like 7 and 8 and 9, those kind of ones, I think they were a bit flat. And I think it was just because I was easing into it. I was away from the fear, but I hadn't quite found my place. I hadn't quite realised that it was the passion that I put into it that helps the show move along. And I thought it was the conversation that helped it along, but it's not, isn't it? It's a combination of the two. And did you have that? Did you sort of go, fear, oh, I quite like this, oh, actually, I think I'm too calm?
Yes. Yeah, no, I did. And then because I'm a very monotone person, and if I don't, I have to constantly monitor myself to pronunciate and to speak up and stuff like that, because it is not natural for me. So I'm still working on that. That's part of the growing thing with me, and as far as that goes, I mean, getting behind the mic and doing what you do, and you're very comfortable with it, David. It's now you are, and I don't know, maybe some of your earlier episodes were difficult, but I went through that stage too. And then I had the double thing too, where I don't know if you're using Libsyn or not, but Libsyn stats went down right about that same exact time. So I'm getting into that comfortable stage and I'm starting to second guess myself. And then I see the Libsyn stats drop off and I'm like, okay, I got like 3 downloads today. I'm already a weekend, you know what I'm saying? So it was, I had to do a little recheck,
I couldn't get any downloads at the beginning. It was dreadful. 27 days I went without not a single download, but hardly any. I couldn't break from 20, and I was releasing episode after episode after episode. And that was my time when I was thinking, hang on, what am I doing wrong here? I'm doing the best I can possibly do. No one's listening. And then I think I relaxed about that, and I thought, well, hey, if no one listens, I'm just going to enjoy myself and enjoy the conversations that I'm having. And things do find their natural place, don't they? And that's what I want people to understand in these conversations. That, yes, we're talking about things that are perceived as areas of success. Yes, we've transitioned from one thing to another. But you go through fear, you go through lack of knowledge, you go through understanding, then you go through the bit when you actually put yourself out there. And in any role, it's not just podcasting, it could be any role you're in. Once you put yourself out there, then you start to get a bit rocky. And then it calms down, and then it gets rocky again. And it just doesn't change, does it? And I think that is the ability to grow, because you're assessing yourself constantly about what needs to be done to push yourself onto that next level. Would you agree with that, Ron?
100%. Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. And I also want to say, though, too, I think we are our most worst critic of our own personal stuff. You know what I'm saying? So you might listen back to your stuff and think it was terrible, but 99.9% of the world thinks it's amazing, you know. So
I actually like my stuff. I don't mean that ego, but sometimes I do listen back to my shows just because I like to get a flavour of the conversation. And certainly the ones I've left a long time ago, I listen back to them and I actually forget it's me. And I can't remember the conversation that much because I do so many of them. They sort of blur into one. And there's sort of nuggets of gold that I remember and I can quote in other episodes. But the actual flavour and the actual flow of the conversations, I don't remember. And certainly sometimes I listen back, and this is really bad to say, I actually laugh at my own jokes. And I don't even remember in my head ever having those thoughts. But I must have done because I've said them. And it's a really weird feeling listening back going, I've never thought that. Why did I say that? That's never been on my radar at all. So no, I do, actually. I gave myself a glowing review. Have you given yourself a glowing review on iTunes?
I have not yet. And I might now that you mentioned it, to be perfectly honest with you. I could use another review for the people that are listening. So
It goes on your name. That's the bit that freaked me out. I thought it was going to have some weird name that they couldn't track me down, but it does. It actually comes out Ron Fugle.
Does it?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'll still do it. Who cares? I mean, what we're doing and what you're doing is freaking awesome, man. And there's no reason why not to give yourself a good review. I mean, it's why not? What you're doing, what a lot of people want to do, but won't do because of the fears of getting over it. You know what I'm saying? So
let's blow our bugle, Fugle. That's what we need to do, don't we?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Now, I'm going to play a speech now because I think really it nails what we've just been talking about. And I don't know if you've heard this recently. I've started playing this on the show. It's a small one. I'm going to play this and see if you can guess who it is. You probably have heard this, but this is so vitally important to what we're saying. And anyone who's out there, listen to these words because they are astonishing.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
That gives me shivers every time I listen to it. Do you know who that is?
I do, and I'm completely drawing a blank on his freaking name right now, and it's drawing me the Truman Show guy.
It is Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey.
Yes, Jim Carrey. Thank you. My God, what a time to draw a blank. But yeah, no, that maybe it was because of the impact of his speech, but that is a perfect, and there's a lot of good ones out there, but that's one of them. That's definitely one of the good ones.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of my favorite ones. Because it is so true, isn't it? We go into jobs because there's a job and it gets offered to us. Do you want this job? Yeah, okay, I'll do that because I don't know what else I want to do. And quite often people will offer us more money and we will go into other jobs. But if you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, do we actually want to do these jobs? No, not really. That's not what our dreams are. And so I love that he says, we've only got one life. And if we don't do what we want to do and what we love doing, then we're ultimately going to fail anyway. We might have all the money in the bank, but we're not being true to ourselves. And I think that's so important for everyone to realise that we're only here once, unless somebody tells me otherwise. We're only here once. And so wouldn't it be dreadful if at the end of your life you think, yeah, I did 60 years in a job, but I didn't like the people sitting next to me. I didn't like the job just because it was a job.
Yeah, no, that is one of my biggest fears, sir. I don't, and that again comes from looking back and learning from other people's lessons, life lessons, and watching them go through that experience. We're definitely doing things backwards, I think, and maybe not necessarily backwards, but we lost our path somewhere and why we do things and stuff, because that's what I did my whole life, is I worked for a paycheck, and you get into this trapped type situation where that they pay you just enough not to leave. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you really can't. Yeah. And then what I mean by that is for you to go and transition into a different job or a different career or something like that, it's painful enough for you financially to not want to take that step. You know what I'm saying? So they kind of lock you into a position and you feel trapped. Like, what do? You need to make the sacrifices, to be perfectly honest with you. Somebody says out there, live like nobody else today so you can live like nobody else tomorrow.
Which is true, isn't it?
Yes. Yep. Absolutely.
So when you was in the military, what made you leave the military, if you don't mind me asking? Because I've heard you on many podcasts and you loved it, didn't you? You loved being a tank member crewman. I was listening to one of your shows, and I do apologise, I can't remember which one it was, and you was talking about the force and the sort of hot air and everything when you shoot a cannon from a tank inside, and the power that hits you. And as you was talking, beforehand, I'll be honest, your voice was quite monotone, but then you started to get exciting and you could hear it in your voice that you loved firing tanks. So what was it about it that you loved, and why did you leave?
I left. I had to leave. I was medically discharged. I screwed my shoulders up, so I didn't really have a choice. And you got to think of the military as a business too. And if you get injured or something like that, and they don't want to keep you around, they don't want to take chances of more injuries occurring, and then there's more money involved. I mean, so there's a lot of different things involved. But anyways, I was transitioned out on a medical discharge short of my 4-year tour, and I was married at the time, so it was difficult being in. But I think if the circumstances were difficult or different, I would have been a 20-year guy all the way. As far as what I liked and loved about being a tanker, it's cool, man. I am big in, like I said, that adrenaline rush thing and stuff like that. I actually joined the military to be an airborne infantry ranger. So, or not ranger, but airborne infantry ranger was something I aspired to be. It never happened again with my injuries and stuff. But when you shoot a tank and it goes off, the percussion inside there is just so extreme. It's just the amount of power and stuff. It really makes you think about. There's so many things out there that can take you out in a second. It just makes you look at things a little bit different. And then I got to drive around in a big steel tank and blow things up. I mean, what kind of guy doesn't like that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, not my kind of guy, anyways.
With your sort of tank member crewman in a tank, how many of you are there? There's 3, 4, 5. How many people?
4.
There's 4.
4.
And did you ever have situations that you didn't like the people you was with, or does that not come into play? Because it must be pretty contained being in the tank.
It comes into play, but it's not. I'll be honest with you. There was maybe 1 or 2 people in my unit that I wasn't 100% fond of. But when what hits the fan, it doesn't matter, man. So it that goes out the window. But thankfully, the tank crew members that I was with, Sergeant New, all those guys, I mean, they become your family. They become your brothers. I spent more time with those guys than I did my wife at the time, So thankfully, I was in a good unit to where I didn't have those issues. But yeah, and I can imagine how it can get that way, But we're all there to do a job. We've all been trained not to you gotta respect your authority. You go through the change of command. I mean, there's just they do a very good job at keeping that part of it out as much as possible. At least they did when I was in.
Did you ever have an argument? And be honest with me, Ron. Did you ever have an argument in the shower locker room? Because every film I've ever seen, they're always having an argument after toweling themselves down while a load of naked men are bouncing around behind them with dangly bits. Did you ever have an argument?
I think that was their ploy on how to figure out how to get a more female demographic. You can't take and stick that many type A personality people in one room and expect not to have conflicts. You know what I'm saying? And then what we're doing and what we're training, I mean, everything's there to teach us to be strong and invincible and to overcome obstacles and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, there's issues, but it's nothing crazy. It's nothing knockout, drag out. I mean, there was some silly things and stuff like that, but I didn't get involved in any of those, thankfully. Well, I mean, there was a couple issues, but it's nothing naked in the shower or nothing like that, man. But you stick a bunch of boys that are pretty much high school kids coming out of high school into that situation. They're all that type A personality. I mean, you're going to have boys being boys. You're going to have people being that type of people. You know what I'm saying? You gotta, and why would you want to not foster that in that environment too?
Well, in all seriousness, what you're saying is the classic peer group, isn't it? We say to everyone on the show, have you surrounded yourself with people who are like-minded, who are your support network? And I suppose in the military, that's forced on you, isn't it? But you've got people that you would risk your life to support because that's what's expected of you. And you may not like them, but you can be inspired by the actions they're willing to take on your behalf, and so you grow to match that as well. And that's something that is so important for anyone who's trying to become successful in life, by looking at the people around them and trying to match or improve upon what they're doing. Did you find that?
Yeah, and I didn't realize it then, but I do now by all means. And when you look back at it too, now with it all volunteer military, you know what I'm saying? It's not like people were forced into it or anything. These are all people that have that desire, that passion, that to serve, to help people, to protect, you know what I'm saying? So they're all, I mean, I'm biased, yes, because I'm a veteran, I'm ex-military and stuff, but when I hired and fired people, when it was part of my job and stuff like that, and people would come in with their resumes and stuff like that, and I saw that they were a veteran, and maybe I was slightly biased again, but it's just a lot of the report issue was already done and out of the way. You know, the interview even went different. You know what I'm saying? It was just that trust, that integrity. You live your life, honor, integrity, selfless service, personal courage. You know what I'm saying? You live your life by those values, and those things are instilled into you. So it's like almost a lot of the basic morality questions are out of the way and gone already. You know, and now I realize that the military really is just one of the biggest mastermind groups that there is. It's just we haven't learned to take advantage of the technology that we have these days, and it's just getting into that area, I think.
And so I'm going to play Steve Jobs in a moment, because that's, the reason of the show. But when you look back and you join up your dots, did it all start from the military, or can you see your path starting even earlier than that?
Long before that. Yeah. I mean, my path started, I think, but my parents owned businesses. You know, I came from an entrepreneurial background, and I saw that. And I think I had that bug and itch in me since I was born. I don't think that there's, I stood and I'm looking for positions and stuff out there right now, but I stood in front of my desk one day, and I was talking to my secretary, and my arms are crossed, and I was staring out the window, and she says, "What are you thinking?" And I just looked at her, and I said, I just don't think that I can do this anymore. I don't think that I can physically take myself to work every day to make somebody else a buck and be forced to do things that I didn't feel were morally proper. You know what I'm saying? So that was, so there's so many dots along my way, man. We could talk for another 15 episodes, I'm sure.
Well, we will do. Let's just make this the Ron and David show. How about that? And
there we go.
We'll blow Join Up Dots up. We'll point a tank at it and blow it up. Right, I'm going to bring on Steve Jobs here, because it is the powerhouse statement of the show. No, I'm not even going to lead it up to it. I'm just going to play it, and then we're going to ask you about it afterwards. This is Steve Jobs.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
So why do you think those words are so loved by so many people, Ron?
Because it gives people hope. It gives people, to know that you can't just do something for, you know what I'm saying? It's hope. It's dreaming. It's to me, that's what it means. You know what I'm saying? To me, that gives hope. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's not what you're going for. You know what I'm saying? But, do you want to play it again for me? Give me another take at it.
Oh, play it again. First time ever. This is Steve Jobs again.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart, even when it leads you off the well-worn path. And that will make all the difference.
Second helpings of Mr. Jobs.
Well, no, you know what it is I get so lost up in the words that it just takes me off into my own little world. And I wish that he would have been around when I was a kid, to be perfectly honest with you, because somebody would have played that to me when I was a teenager, or even before that. Maybe it would have changed my path and the way that I took on the things and decisions that I made in my younger years.
Why do you say that? Because as a young man, do you think you would have actually listened? Because I generally don't think I would have done.
No, I knew everything back then. I thought, honestly, and it sucks because I think a lot of kids have that mentality. They think they know everything. They think their parents are silly. They think that, the people that have, that got gray hair have no idea what they're talking about, and they're so far disconnected from their world that they couldn't relate anything in it. And it's could be the furthest thing from the truth. And I think that's the saddest thing for me is watching younger people turn down the advice from people that have been there already because of that. And just knowing that the only thing that's going to save that person is going through the hard knocks like I had to, and learning the hard way on their own. So would I have taken that advice? Probably not. Do I look back now and at what I've been through and hear that and say, man, I should have freaking taken his advice? Yeah. Yeah, by all means.
I listen to that every day, and I agree with you totally. Sometimes I'm really on it, and other times it just sort of floats away from me. But I think you nailed it right at the very beginning. When we played it the first time, it's hope. I think that's what it is. And I think that's the power of this show as well. And this is what people have been saying to me. When they listen to it, they actually feel that anything's possible because they're hearing these conversations from people that are overcoming their challenges. They're being driven forward, but they haven't got a clearly defined path of where they're going. And that's the beauty of Join Up Darts. It is that ability to be able to make the mistakes, bounce into walls, hit closed doors, but then every now and again find this clear piece of land that you can run across and make progress in your life. But you're not going to get that land, that run, that clear sprint, unless you do try different things. And you're going to have a lot of failures, aren't you?
Yeah. And now that I'm sitting here listening to you talk and listening to you explain it, now do you think that a lot of people that have early success, okay, the ones that have the instant success, young age, young 20s, and they're multi-million-dollar businesses and stuff, do you think that they just knew better and listened to the people that were trying to talk to them?
I don't actually.
Do you think that might have been?
I don't actually think that anyone has instant success. I think if you go back to like 15-year-olds, I've got a chap coming on the show now who is an entrepreneur beyond anything, and he's 15 years old. And I bet if you go back, and he actually started his first company at 4. So you kind of think, no, hang on, what can you do wrong before 4? But I bet he did. And I bet he did things that he wasn't proud of or whatever. It is. Everything has a starting point. And when you look at sort of...
No, but if he at 14 years old, though, is looking back on his life since he was 4 and connecting those dots and learning along his life's lessons already at that point, then where's he going to be in 20 years from now?
Yeah, absolutely. Where the hell is he going to be?
He's already made that connection, man. That's what I'm saying. That's what frustrates me is it took me a lot of years to make that connection. I'm not sure how long it took you, but for me to hear you talking about somebody that's 14, that's somebody to watch,
I made my move when I was 44. I think mentally I made my move when I was 16. I think at the age of 16, I knew that my life wasn't going to be what I was getting. And it took me between 16 and 44 to actually do something about it. And I can join up my dots. I can see the transition. I can see the moments when I said, enough is enough. I'm not going to do this anymore. But I didn't know what I wanted to do or what I had the opportunity to do. It was when I, exactly the same as you, was listening to Michael O'Neill and he said those words, there comes a time when you know too much. I suddenly realised, like you as well, that's my moment. That is it. I would have that tattooed on my arm because when you do realise that actually I can't be an employee anymore, I can't work for somebody, I need to take control of my life. Once you actually start taking control and building your own reality, you do suddenly think, why the hell didn't I do this earlier? This isn't as scary as I made out. This isn't, everything that I was saying was scary was just an excuse. And you can go into it, and because you've got that ability to take the momentum and grab hold of any opportunities and network and hustle. I'm having a conversation with you, Ron. I wouldn't have done this a year ago. it wouldn't be any, it wouldn't be on my radar that I could actually do this and not build a life around it. But it's only when you do take that last leap of faith and you start building your parachute so that you don't plummet to your death, you actually look around and go, it's a pretty good view, this. I quite like this. I think I want to be up here a bit longer.
Yeah, that's an awesome analogy. Yes, yep, absolutely. And it's, but now think about that. You said you were 16 and you're 44 or something like that. Now, all those years right now is all I want to do, and I'm sure that's probably similar to you, is help save somebody that time and that journey and those heartaches and everything, and help shorten their time frame. That's what I aspire to do with Fire and Adjust. So time is by far, I think, our most valuable currency.
Well, you are doing that with Fire and Adjust, and as you say, time is our currency. But I do think people can't leap until they're ready. I really think that you might get somebody who's 80. And that's his moment to do it. You might get somebody who's 20. I think there just comes a time when you know that you haven't got any more options. So what you're doing is amazing. And we're going to touch on that now, because your Fire and Adjust podcast, you are having hugely emotional, deep conversations with not just veterans, but with people from all walks of life. And do you actually feel when you're having these conversations that 20 years ago you could have done that? Because I couldn't do that now. I look at it, and it's only because I've got the life experience, I've got the knocks, I've got the grazed knees from falling over and all those kind of things, that I can talk to people on a level playing field. I don't think I could have done 20 years ago. So when you're having your conversations in Fire and Adjust, do you actually think, yeah, I'm at the right place now to be able to bring this off?
Sometimes no. But yes, yeah. I mean, it definitely was a concern of mine in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? It was a concern of that imposter syndrome and who am I to talk to these people and everything. But yes, by far, now that I look back at everything and after talking with people and realizing that they're no different than you and I, you know what I'm saying? It's just they did something different along the lines, and that's what I want to highlight. So now I'm very comfortable talking to, for instance, if I have somebody that's got a multi-million-dollar business. Before, I would have been scared off my what to even remotely think that I was going to have an interview with that person where I was interviewing him and putting it out on the air. Are you kidding me? No way.
What would have been scary about that? So, we always talk about Richard Branson because everybody admires Richard Branson. There's no getting away from that. So if Branson was in the room and he was sitting with you, what would be the scary thing for you?
Sounding like a complete babbling fool. I would just worry that I wouldn't be up to par with them intellectually and be able to be of any interest to them. The last thing I would want to do is bore somebody. You know what I'm saying? So all those things, there's a lot of things that go into play when you start thinking about the psychological aspects of sitting there and interviewing somebody that you look up to or you admire, or maybe it seems to be a lot more successful than you. But when you sit back and you think about it, they're at again, Michael O'Neill thing, they're just at a different point on their timeline is all. They might be 5-10 years down the road, where 5-10 years ago they were sitting in the same exact damn chair you are, excuse my language, and doing the same things. But there's that correlation there. Nobody, we're all the same. And to be perfectly honest with you, everybody that I've talked to that I thought was going to be are just amazing, amazing people. They're so helpful, and they just are supportive in everything you do. You just have to have the cojones to go out there and ask them.
So on that timeline, I know what you're talking about on that timeline. He said a phrase, and I remember listening to it and thinking, this is brilliant. And it was basically, there is no bad, you're just at a different level. So if you're looking at, you're a drummer and you're basing your skills on Phil Collins, for example, you would say, yeah, I'm not as good as him, but actually you think, well, he was at my level at the stage that I am. It's just that he's been drumming for longer. And that's with everything, isn't it? So when you look at things, there are some people that are naturally talented. I couldn't be Lionel Messi, no matter how much I tried. But there's a lot that you can do. And just because somebody is better at you at that time, it doesn't mean that you can't get better than them. They're just on a different timeline.
Dude, we all had our diapers changed at some point. You know what I'm saying? We're all the same. We're all the same exact people. There's just... And that's why I was asking that kid that's 14 that's doing things like this already. What was the people that are saying, like, what did Steve Jobs dots look like? You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. It's no different. You know, it's just the outcome, the dreams, the drive, and what you're willing to put yourself out there for and go after.
Well, just before I put you on the mic and we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with yourself, what do you hope from Fire and Adjust podcast? Is it going to be a global brand, or is it going to push you off into different areas? Are you using it as a springboard for other things, or is it the content itself which is the most important thing for you?
I think Fire and Adjust is going to grow to be something that I don't even really or can't envision at this point. You know what I'm saying? I have big dreams for it, and it's going to go into probably many different directions. But I mean, right now, just building a network and inspiring people is really my main focus. And if that's all it ever is just an interview show where I get on people and I help people get over their fears and take action with their lives, then I'll be a happy camper with that. You know, but I would love to build an active Facebook community or an active group or something like that where I can actually start to interact and work with people and help motivate them too, you know, and it's just something that I dream to do and I enjoy doing, and to be able to just talk with people one-on-one like you are right now, okay, and just let people vent and talk about what they think. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects that could come out. So we'll see, man. The sky's the limit for Fire and Adjust. Is it going to go away? Never. Nope. It'll be here one way, shape, or form, brother. One way and not going anywhere.
No, I know it will, Ron, because Fire and Adjust is something that is amazing. And for people out there who aren't aware of the show, it has been a roller coaster. It's absolutely flown. Is there one thing that you have done that you look back on it and go, yes, I set myself up for success because I did that? And if somebody is listening now who's getting inspired to create their own show, can you give them one nugget of advice that you would do again and again and again if you had the chance?
As painful as it was, and it goes against everything I say, is you got to make sure you have your branding right. You know what I'm saying? But you can't spend all day long on it either. You can't not start your project because you're trying to get things perfect. So the whole point of Fire and Adjust is take action and fix it along the way. But you got to make sure that you're at least pointed in the right direction. You know, try to get your branding and some of the basic things right, you know, in the beginning, and it'll make the whole process go a lot easier. And as far as what else you can do, just like I said, man, just take the action. Just get out there and do it. Get something recorded, get it out there, get some advice now. And there's a lot of people like, oh, well, I don't want to lose the new and noteworthy and stuff like that. You know what? Then get a mic, start recording an interview, and just get the practice out there. And you don't necessarily have to release those interviews. You know what I'm saying? I encourage you to do it because it's going to take people along your journey. You know what I'm saying? That's why I never not introduced the first episode of Fire and Adjust with Chris Cerrone, because I wasn't going to, you know what, hide that from you guys. It was still good content. I sounded rough. I sounded sketchy. Chris was cool already because he's doing a podcast and stuff. But so you just got to take action, get over your fears, and do it. You know, it's all gonna, whatever. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. You know what I'm saying? If you put it out there and nobody listens and it tanks, you know what I'm saying? Then who cares? Nobody listened anyways. Who's gonna know? You. You know what I'm saying? Then adjust it. Figure it out. What was it that wasn't right? What didn't work for you? And try something different. And I've got a closet full of businesses that didn't go anywhere. You know?
It's a brilliant words of advice for that, because yeah, what you're saying, but everybody out there, is don't be frightened of starting something, because it can be ugly, it can be rubbish, because no one's going to be looking anyway. It's your opportunity to make something that you're proud of while everyone else is paying attention, looking elsewhere, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. It'll get you the time to overcome those fears. And I mean, even if you do get 20 listens, you know, half of them are going to be your family and friends anyways. And it's just opportunity to get better, to make it happen, man. I don't think I've ever done something that I was fearful for, looked back and said, you know what, I'll never do that again. I mean, I guess there is some things, but, you know, jumping out of planes, like I said, joining the military, I was scared the hell when I joined. I was a freaking kid. I walked into the recruiter's office, said I want to be out here before the snow flies. You don't think I had fears of that? Those things add up over the years, and you look back at them, and that to me is what it's all about. That's why I stress Stephen Pressfield's book so much, Overcoming Your Fears, because I think everything kind of at one point or another refers back to it's a fear of something that you have. Fear of financial failure, fear of putting yourself out there, fear of something that's holding you back one way, shape, form, or another, whether it translates into monetization or not. You know what I'm saying? Something that inside of you need to say, okay, I'm doing it, and go. And sorry to ramble there, but I could probably have gone on for another 10 minutes just ranting about it, but yeah.
No, I love the rants. I rant all the time. And I do this crazy thing that I know I'm doing it, but I start asking a question, and then I rant, and then I think, oh, I better throw in a question at the end. And so I do. And so I have these huge rambling questions.
Yep. I'm the same way. And you know what? I used to try to edit some of that rambling out of the middles of the questions and stuff like that, and I stopped doing that because there's a lot of great content in there. It's... You're struggling to find your words, and you're struggling to find your words because you have a lot to say. I think when you hear people go off on like that, so to me it's cool. You're on the edge of getting some really good information at points like that when you're having a conversation.
Absolutely. You're finding your true path and you're vocalizing it. Bang. Out to the world. That's what it's all about. Mm-hmm. Right. Yep. And I'll tell you what else it's all about. This is the part of the time when we put you on the mic. This is the sermon on the mic, when we send you back in time, Ron, to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time, what age Ron would you speak to? Would it be a 5-year-old? Would it be the chap just about to go into the army, the one coming out of the army? Whatever it is, this is your chance to give them the words of advice. This is the sermon on the mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the sermon on the mic, the sermon on the mic.
All right, I'm going to talk to Ron that's getting out of the military now that I think about it. So, hey man, you're looking back on your life right now and you're thinking of the things that you've accomplished and whatnot and where you're going to go. And there's a lot of doors that are going to open for you in the future, and just don't let them close on you, and go through them, and don't let fear hold you back. Just freaking take the opportunities that come up, because you never know what's going to happen. And if you start to create businesses and they become across different obstacles and stuff, whether they be financial or other reasons, personally, don't let those things stop you, man. You need to drive on and go for it, and you can do it. So quit being a pansy and do it. So that's what I would say to myself.
Stop being a pansy. I like that. Right, Ron, it's the end of the show. I hate to say this, so how can people connect with you who are listening here and they want to know more about Fire and Adjust and all the amazing things you're getting up to?
fireandadjust.com is the central headquarters for everything Fire and Adjust, man. So they can go to fireandadjust.com, and if they want, fireandadjust.com/contact will take them to, they can get me on email, Facebook, Google+, Twitter, everywhere from there.
Okay, we will put those links all on the show notes. And Ron, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. It's been as much a delight on this show as it was being on your show, and that's all down to you. So please come back again when you have more dots to join up, as I believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our pasts is the best way to build our futures. Ron Fugle, thank you so much.
No, thank you, sir. I appreciate it, and I think what you're doing is great. You're exactly right, man. It's all about those jots.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinup.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.